And we're live on Tartary Nova's recent conversations with recent Tartarian co-founder and one of the greatest. I think they call him Based Ian now. That's his new nickname. This is Based Ian. How's it going, Ian Crossland?
Great, man. What's your swearing policy?
Oh you literally I do have one, but it's not something I enforce. But my personal policy, like any fan of the the Disney creative era of Mary Poppins, I like it when people say flamingo or like if they try to like do something creative, but that's just a personal feeling. That's not like yeah.
In
If
that
you
case,
needed to be like
I'm flipping awesome.
yeah, there you go. But if you needed
Wig
to,
out, dude.
no one's gonna stop you. I don't think really. I
Right.
mean, it's
I
the
hear
same
that
thing.
working with IRL so much, we figured that it derank YouTube algorithm will derank swearing.
Really fast. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the AI picks up on it, so I try and limit it. Even though,
yeah.
man, sometimes it just wants to burst out.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do it too, and I try not to, but it's like it's so easy to do. But there's I've started thinking a lot about curse words actually in terms of like their power. You know, like the South Park episode where it's like words of curse have magic and stuff. There's definitely a place to use those words. And a lot of last time we had a guy last episode talking about all the definitions of words, and he stopped right before F because of that, because he just spent like 2 hours talking about A through E, because if you get to F, then you have to talk about for unlawful carnal knowledge and how people were put in shackles if they committed adultery in the streets, and they would look at them and
It's
then
so, I mean, there's the F word, and then there's the N word, but I think those are the only two words that are like they have their own letter.
yeah, don't say Nietzsche. It offends a lot
No,
of
Nietzsche
people.
is it's
Yeah,
severely
yeah,
demoralizing just to hear that word, especially
yeah.
if you call someone Nietzsche.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it these days, but it's all right to be kind of like you can still say Uber. Apparently, you just can't
Yeah.
say yeah or Mensch. But if you say Uber Mensch, then
Oh,
you're
is that like a Nazi thing?
not necessarily. I mean, the Doors. Jim Morrison like didn't want a car when he was 16. He asked for an entire encyclopedia set of Nietzsche because that's what he thought was be his vehicle of expression. So you can't. I mean, unless the Doors are. But I kind of feel like they're more artsy and long hair. That's another thing we can kind of jive on. Is I've noticed that people are like, "Who's Ian with the long hair? Is he, you know?" But I would say you're like pretty much you've been surrounded recently by a lot of people that are very conservative, and then before that, you were surrounded by a lot of people that were very liberal. You've been around libertarian people. I think you're very just open. What would you
Yeah.
describe yourself?
Um, Very central, kind of middle of the road. I mean, spending so much time on Andreas, you and I lived on what they called the Madhouse in Venice, California, where a couple of the Doors used to live. Actually, I think John Densmore and Robbie Krieger maybe lived there at some point. And
Yes, we found out that Jim Morrison never paid rent legally, which I
oh,
was
that's
like,
awesome.
that was he just was living on the couch, and I was like, oh well, I can understand
That's
that.
so Jim. And that was crazy. That was like people coming in off Venice Beach and just sleeping on the couch, pot every night, as many psychedelics as we could get our hands on. And I went from that lifestyle to like working with Tim on the regular. Just I'm not drinking, not doing any drugs,
Yeah,
eating, not barely even touching sugar, like speaking about drugs,
that's
and
smart.
focusing on like, the news. It's really cool though. I think it all kind of blends together. The crazy psychedelic world and the serious I don't know, serious liberal world, I would call it. I don't know.
Right.
Serious,
I
like
mean,
literal world.
the literal the literal world seems like there's a lot of individual mobility that people want back, and it doesn't matter what side they are on or what they were on or anything, because it changes sides based on whether or not that side's helping them. And it seems like politics are so random now, like which issues which side has. At one point, I think we were in South America, and you said something about like we were talking about like someone asked like, "What do you think about left and right?" And you're like, "Well, they're basically the same thing." I was like, "Well, there really are." It was like, no, but like honestly, the parties themselves have become switching off of issues so much that it's easier to jump from party to party with your issue, and
That's for sure. Trump's
it,
super liberal.
yeah, totally. What do you think about that? Also, like people, what do you think? I mean, isn't it weird that the people on the other side like the conservative rigidness of the Democrat ideology, or what's going on with that? Why
Dude,
is
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's like cognitive dissonance is playing a role with why people are trying to stop Trump. Like it just that to me is like kind of neurotic. You know, he hasn't gotten us in any new war. I don't even think. I mean, besides the John Bolton years, the first couple of years he was like launching a lot of drone strikes. But since he kicked Bolton out, he's brought drone strikes way down. You know, he got us out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was going to sell our country out to a bunch of overseas corporations. He's a jerk. He's a freaking dick, you know. But that's, I think, what people, and so they're willing to put aside like Hillary's emails and all these crazy scandal, Hunter Biden's laptop and all these crazy scandals, just because they don't like his personality. And I don't like his personality, but I mean, at some point you got to be a realist, I think.
Yeah, voting out of spite for a crackhead or whatever is going on. I mean, whatever people are doing. But it's like, I mean, somebody who's involved with like the mob and everything. What do you think about his whole deal where Trump made all these jokes during his campaign debates, like with Hillary, about like, oh, I'd make a deal with Russia. And then they started looking into him and his Russia deals, and it turned out she was in deals. Do you think he knew like that far back about what was going on?
My guess is he didn't, but I think he didn't. I don't know. I think he's just flamboyant and kind of a jokester, and so he like picked the most like damning thing he could think of and said it, and it just so happened that
It was real.
yeah. I don't know, what has Hillary been involved with the Russians? I didn't know.
Yeah, her deal was uranium one. So the uranium one conflict's a pretty big deal because so Bilderberg 2008, the meeting was happening, and in the East Coast, I think it was Virginia, Obama and Hillary were still not quite decided who was going to run for president in 2008. And Obama was selected at the Bilderberg meeting. And what they did was they took all of the journalists, put them onto a plane, said that they were both going to be on the plane. They were going, and they never let them out of the plane for several hours until after they'd finished and going to the meeting for this introduction. Afterwards, Hillary endorsed officially Obama and then withdrew her campaign for the next 8 years. But in the process, he selected her to be Secretary of State, right?
Yeah.
And so her job was then, we've heard all the things about Benghazi, but there's more than just people dying in Benghazi. There's the Ukrainian companies. The Soviet Union had these companies in other states. They still rent a cosmoport in Kazakhstan, for instance. So the United States has to go all these places and make sure that those places are still the same way. Because if anything happens and they don't have anything, then they might make a deal with China, or with, before China, it would have been with the, the Middle Eastern terrorists, or India or Pakistan making a nuclear deal, or North Korea, or anybody has some money, when these scientists were not being paid or fed for their families. So the United States went into, we had to keep these things going. And then she would make these deals, and eventually what ended up happening was these quasi-Putin, quasi-corporate, quasi-government-run Russian state oligarchy cartel states emerged, and these corporate businesses that were nuclear power companies. This is another example similar to the Hunter Biden situation, was uranium one. And so uranium one was where the United States sold, I think it was like 20% of our uranium reserves to this company that was essentially 51% controlled by Putin, by oligarchs. And that was a big beginning scandal. And it would just continue to peter on, like every single thing would connect to Russia. And then during the debates this last time, Trump made all these interesting remarks about Ukraine, and it showed how little the Americans really understand that there's a difference between Poland and Russia and Ukraine and Mexico. Like, the Americans don't really understand any of that stuff anyway. So he's like, yeah, I mean, like, you gave Russia the Ukrainian port with all of their submarines and their tanks and things. Like, you gave them, like, America under an Obama administration through, granted Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, but you were the Vice President Biden, and you allowed for this to happen with Obama, that they just gave up this huge chunk of a country where all these tens of thousands of people lived. And so those were the talking points on Russia. It seems like Russia does exist as a conspiracy. It's just not what we were told. And it makes, I don't know for sure either if he knew. I mean, that's that's the running cue thing. Everyone wants to say that he did. I like better though your take that he's just in the chaos, pretty good at the board meeting. Like that does make sense
for
to me.
sure. They call him the chaos president or the chaos candidate at the time.
Right. Yeah. So he's riding on all of our chaos. What do you think about the like if is this like a parallel dimension? Like every movie about a parallel dimension has Trump as the president and the world seems to be ending. Is this that world? Is that where we are?
Maybe, although I think there was another dimension where Ron Paul became president in 2008 and was like Darth Vader and reset the Force, like wiped out all the Jedi and all the Sith. And I don't know if that meant the financial system or whatever. They just had a great reset that he was kind of an overlord or a sub overlord of. He used to terrify me. I would have these like premonitions that if Ron Paul got elected, it would be like electing Darth Vader. But for better or worse, now looking back on it, maybe, wiping out the Jedi and the Sith wouldn't have been, maybe those religious zealots need to get wiped out. I don't know.
That's a gnarly metaphor that at first I didn't quite get until you went with it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. Because that's really kind of, if we're talking about constitutional, what does Coney Barrett call herself? She's a constitutional
literalist.
Literalist. She interprets the Constitution based on literal.
Traditionalist, maybe something
traditional.
Like that.
Yeah, she tries not to interpret it beyond what it was meant to mean at the time. So if you think about that, this is before lobbyists and all these groups. So it would literally be the end of the Jedi and the Sith. But at the same time, those groups are kind of necessary because how else do we organize? We know how many people want, like if a company is lobbying for something, they have a lot of money, right? Like, so we know how many people are using that company. If Google is influencing the elections, it's mainly in Twitter. It's mainly because they have influence, because people rely on them. So, I mean, should we take that away from these big oligarchs? Or should we level the playing field, or is that wrong?
It's a good question, because sometimes if you take out the power structure, a new one arises that's worse. Yeah, repealing the Federal Reserve Act would have been something I think Ron Paul would have went for. He would have, what do you call it when someone looks at your taxes? When they like order you to reveal all your stuff and they go
auditing.
Yeah. He would have issued an audit of the Federal Reserve first, and then maybe if you found corruption, repealed it. It could have created an even more dangerous power structure, but I think Bitcoin is the crypto structure is the preeminent replacement for the SWIFT payment system and all the IMF and BIS, Bank of International Settlement, central banking, Swiss bank system that's kind of running the show right now. Maybe Ron Paul, because he was right around when Bitcoin was starting off, like 2010, I think is when Bitcoin launched.
Totally.
Maybe he would have just quickened that, ushering in, and we'd be on a full crypto system now.
So maybe we should think about the future a bit in that way. By the way, I love that Maggot said that I studied Tartary. Shows the word stud over my head.
That's awesome.
R&R, stud. Us. Yes. Okay. Well, so looking at the future. If the future is just going to come eventually and we're accelerating it or slowing it down, and Ron Paul was the quickest way, where does that future go? What is the Bitcoin future? Why is that the future, and why is it better, and what's it going to do?
Lately, I've been reading that the Bank of International Settlements is going to start issuing a digital currency, which isn't necessarily a type of crypto, which is a little disconcerting. It's just a digital currency that is like a 1-for-1 to their current. I think it was a country has already started the transition, and damn if I could remember. It's not the Bahamas. I don't even know if that's a country. It's some like Central American island nation, Jamaica or something, has issued a digital currency that's a 1-for-1 to their money. And I'm still a little confused as to what that means. If it means that that you can transition, like I can give you a piece of crypto and you'll give me a piece of cash, like a $1 cash thing, or
yeah, that's weird.
Ultimately, I don't want to go cashless. I could see like maybe issuing new forms of cash with RFID chips on them. And so each piece of cash can be like scanned and beeped, and you can tell like that's my crypto, so that if I have crypto in my bank, but then that's like so similar to a credit card, and then they're tracking. And if we're getting tracked, I don't want that. I like that cash is relatively trackless.
Right. So you think that we're headed towards a society that's pretty tracked, though? Do you think that that's inevitable?
Yeah,
Like, why?
I was
Why so?
I was just hearing that the U.S. government has been working on satellites that can beam into your house and listen to your like conversations through your walls and everything. That there's really no escape. Maybe there will be once people get to Mars. There'll be like it'll be harder to track people the further away they go from Earth. But I think Earth will end up being like the central observation point where with neural link and neural net, our thoughts are tracked. Everybody knows whatever. Well, ideally, we would all know if that system was coming. We would all know what everyone was thinking. But I think that someone's going to be pulling the strings, and not you won't know what they're thinking, but they'll know what you're thinking. I mean, it's god awful. It's like worst case. Well, it's a poor case scenario. Maybe not the worst, but the way it's going now, it looks like it's headed in that direction. It doesn't have to be, but but I mean, if we do nothing, I think that's what will happen.
I've been also looking, because of some of the things I've heard with Tim, and I think it's kind of interesting, like also just that kind of correlation too. Even Tim, who'd been for Vice, all of us are like not exactly the most right wing looking or acting people, but like we like kind of got into Thomas Paine and into like Thomas Jefferson and into these ideas of libertine like society. I think that that's a part that everyone wants, a bit more personal and social freedom in general. And it's kind of funny to me looking at Trump's campaign, especially since COVID, because I guess I'll just show some of the thing I was going to say. Let me find the tab. So I was just looking at this, a case for Trump being a Marxist, and I've been making jokes for a while. Is this showing up on the screen yet? Can you see that? Okay, so one of the things that I've noticed about Trump is that, and this is, by the way, 2017, he's made a number of choices, and I've made the term Trump-Leninism, because in a lot of ways, he's a radical leftist. And if you really look at, and it sounds crazy to say, but if you look at the history of neoconservatism and how parties have flipped, and you look into the origins of the Trotskyites who had left Stalin and had kind of begun in the Americas pushing a leftist ideology through the Republican Party, the original neoconservatives, and to this day, the political internationalists, international political scientists refer to the Marxists as, or to neoconservatives as Marxists. Trump has done so many things like make executive orders that would, it's very Stalinite practices, and put in economic plans, forcing businesses to do certain things, centralizing plan for masks. I mean, this is all, of course, under crises, but his exact plan, is more Marxist by a long shot than anything that the official American left, which is really a right-wing ideology, the Democrats have done. But I wonder what you think about that idea that Trump might be, in a way, more Marxist than the Marxists, more Marxist than Bernie Sanders. Some of the things he's done, I mean, Trump Care versus Obamacare, the things he's trying to do. What do you think about that and his relationship to socialism?
He sparks to me as like a guy that goes with the flow above all, just to make money on the situation, whatever the situation is. So because we've been set up into a system with like the Patriot Act and, a national spying agency that's out of control, and, Homeland Security, which is there's probably this organization doesn't even need to exist, but it's just like the spying mechanisms, crazy. I mean, I remember life before Homeland Security, it was just fine. And then 9/11 hit and everyone got freaked out, and they were like, we need a new government spying agency. The NSA is not good enough. The CIA is not good enough. Let's make Homeland Security as well. So now we got that. So he's using these Marxist tools or whatever, these spying tools like the Patriot Act and other ridiculous. What was that thing that Obama passed in his second term that everyone was just like aghast when it was? Do you remember what it was?
Man, I have to admit, every day was like that for me for 8 years.
Dude, I mean, the spying, and then James Clapper lying to Congress that they didn't wittingly know that they were spying on people when they were just harvesting everyone's data at will intentionally. Like, and he hasn't seen any charges. So all these people are getting off without getting charged. And Trump's just like riding the wave. So I don't think that he is necessarily evil, but he will use. He strikes me as like a chaotic, neutral guy, and he will use evil to accomplish his goals if evil is presented to him. He will use good to accomplish his goals if good is presented to him. He will err on the side of good if it's an option, but often it's not an option. And if he tries to be too good, they'd probably have him assassinated. So he's kind of like working within this crazy system that the United States has built since 2001. Maybe it's been going before that, I don't know, but it really got hyper accelerated in 2001 once 9/11 struck.
Oh man, I got two directions to go on that, and the first one is the crazier direction. Let's go crazy for a second. So, what do you think about CERN? They were saying this week that they were trying to contact another dimension. You saw that paper,
No.
right? Let me pull that up really quickly. CERN, another dimension. That's like probably all I have to type to find it. We are confident that we were making contact with another dimension. There we go. There you go. Yeah, CERN. I don't know. This is some weird site. I have a better site I saw earlier. Oh, Skywatch is actually European news. They're pretty decent. They're like the CNN of Europe. CERN, we are confident of making contact with a parallel universe this week. Out of the door might come something. And pointed out by Dr. Thomas into the multiverse, they're talking about how this idea, I want to find a better article though, because that doesn't look nearly as good. But there are tons of articles from decent places that were saying that they've found connections to like by using CERN, that they were getting reactions from subatomic particles in a different level of density, frequency of orbital, that were interacting with without anything from this level of perceived mass to respond to it. It would predict then that it's being responded to from another frequency of reality.
Wow.
And that's pretty good. And that's all around Halloween.
With the full moon.
Yeah.
Happy full moon since the 40s on Halloween.
Happy Holy Ween solar blood moon. It's also like bright. I don't know, for you guys, it's bright red here, and it's like bigger than my head. It's huge. But yeah, powerful.
I haven't looked outside yet.
It's been pretty great. I got these windows.
So what would that mean if we were contacting another dimension necessarily?
That was what I wanted to know.
Okay, let's see if we can figure it out. Is it, you think that someone in another dimension is interacting with us and now we're like connecting?
That could be a huge thing, man. I mean, what if it's not even just another person? What if it's like mass here, because of the density, frequency you're talking about, is bigger and smaller? Like, what if an entire mountain is a living thing, like in Neverending Story, in like the other frequency, and we're experiencing earthquakes even just because we're on the back of some sort of a living thing? I mean, this reality, it's just billions and billions and billions of organisms in soil, When
they say other dimension, are they within that framework of like string theory with 11 dimensions, or has something changed?
I don't think they're using that idea of dimension. I think they're using an idea of frequencies, because there's an infinite number of frequencies where mass can exist. I think dimensions, the way we're talking, when we talk about 11 dimensions, we're talking more about concepts. And I'm not sure if they're saying that these things are necessarily that way, because there's this idea of stacked awareness, right? Which is the 11 dimension thing. So we're thinking about Pac-Man, and you look down over Pac-Man as a human, and you're like, Pac-Man, if you go out left, you're going to come out right. And so trust me, like, you're inside of a hollow earth, like it's flat plane, and trust me, I know, because I can see it. So there's this idea that there's higher awarenesses, like, Ian, I see you going down that road, and you're going to get a haircut. Be careful. Don't do it. Just go the other direction. I can see the future. I can see.
Thank you for the warning.
Yeah, I did it to myself. It's scary. Yeah, I don't know how to use scissors. I only know how to use the buzzer. But like, in general, if you were to follow a trend based on another awareness that sees both futures or sees all futures, then we would consider that a higher awareness dimension. But if there's something that's, so there's things that are aware in dimensions, and I think that's different than living in just a dimension. I think in general, what you have is frequencies, and the frequency is probably a better term than a dimension, but it feels like it's this orbital, while this is happening, simultaneously this has to be happening around it, And there's so many levels of that each one of them is a radio station, maybe like thousands, maybe millions. And then there's this other side of it, which is even just in space. If space is this expanding concept, right? And it doesn't mean that there has to be outer space. It could literally be expanding inward. So like there's plenty of reasons why everyone could be existing in an infinite number of continual realities. In any biblical or Sufi or Islamic story that talks, there's been stories of parallel realities. It doesn't necessarily say that they're far away or here necessarily, though, but you've got everything. Your angels have stacked consciousness and awareness. I mean, and this is why they've done like the ancient aliens thing. But I think that you could easily just go with this idea of consciousness, because once you become able to become immortal, right? Like, which is probably like in the next 6 months. I mean, you'll be able to put your mind into another machine, into another body. If any civilization can do that, the steps require going through light or radio transmission, right? You have to get it out of the body into the other thing. So if you do that, you've become a light being. Even if you're able to put yourself in different bodies again, you're fundamentally able to be a light being. And so that steps outside of any concept we have of extraterrestrial or angel and demon. But really, it's the next fold to tie them together, that there could be things that see the future.
Oh yeah. I mean, or at least can anticipate the future. Like if you're able to measure the pattern that a frequency creates, and then you can see that frequency on another, whatever you want to call it, dimension, but just like a different method of that frequency. So like the vertical spin as opposed to the horizontal spin. And you know where that vertical spin's going, even though other people can't see it. You might be able to anticipate the horizontal future.
I love that Unicorn Banks and Pac-Man equals the mirror scene in The Last Jedi. That's pretty hardcore. We're definitely riding that wave. So, okay, I think we've done a lot of political stuff, and we can maybe think a bit more about this physics and metaphysics thing. And also this futurism, I think, in general, because like it seems like you think like I do that there are options that we can create in the future, and that it's not this like apocalyptic thing necessarily, because we have options. Like, why is that? What do you think that our options are? Like, what should we be doing to make the future?
Carbon recapture technology. I think compared to 5 years ago, I have more hope for humanity than I ever have before with the internet, especially once the internet got formed. I thought, there's no problem we can't overcome now. If we want to learn each other's languages, we can do it in 2 years. We can recover enough carbon with like putting meshes over the smokestacks, just condensing carbon and dioxide into graphene and use it as building material or as food or as wiring or whatever we need to use the graphene as. So
Donald Albert just jumped in. I wanted to say also, he says William Gibson thinks a possible future is currently sending us messages. Shout out to our graphene buddy Donald.
Donald's a genius. He's a chemist and also a master of many things, especially the drums.
Great musician.
I like that idea that time is relative. That because I think that it's moving. We think of time as going forward, but there is no forward. There's no backward. It's just this vibration. And depending on how you look at it, it's a different thing in every moment. So we see it as one way, but if you look at this from a different perception, it looks different. And if it looks different, then is it creating something different, or does it just seem to be? And light travels faster than the matter that it's bouncing off of. So we're actually seeing the future. When you see someone walking towards you, you're seeing the light from that person before they actually get to where they're going. So you're anticipating where they're about to be.
I see that in video games, these kids that predict the game and they can play, like I can't even play because it's like online, and then you have to like play it before it happens, and they learn how to like skip through the level.
Like Missile Command.
Yeah.
Anticipating where the missiles are going to be. That game was so immensely popular in the early 80s.
And now you were Ender from Ender's Game. You could totally do that if we needed you to.
Yeah, dude. Regarding more potential things for the future, I think a lot about what's called iron fertilization in the oceans, where you induce iron oxide into the ocean water and it causes the algae to grow and bloom. So we can you can regrow the plant life of Earth and probably spark life on Mars with that. Also, Mars is so covered with iron oxide dust that when that stuff dissolves into the ice underneath, once we start heating that planet up, I think it's just going to be a bloom of plant life. We're having Jeremy Riss on the show soon. He is working on he's working on a warp drive, and like, you know, about the EM drive, using just vibration to create propulsion. With drone technology and being able to use like internet video, I think we'll be able to explore distant galaxies and planets and stuff without actually having to fly there for 20 years. We'll just have drones all over the galaxy. And we might even be able to start using quantum entanglement to explore other places by projecting like a virtual drone that we can inhabit and use like radio frequency to measure the spot that we're going to be at, and then create that spot locally, and then start experiencing both at the same time.
You're Elon Musk, says Brett Z.
Brett Z.
Elon Musk. I like
Elon Musk. I'd love to have Elon on the show.
Well,
we were talking about injecting hydrogen into the sun. You and I talked about that on Twitter. Sorry to cut you off there. What were you saying?
No, that's good. Go there.
Yeah, and you could use an electro laser. You've heard of like, what is it called? Laser induced plasma channels. So someone was like, how are you going to get the hydrogen into the sun? And someone else, or I thought maybe a laser, an electro laser. So you would ionize the gas into plasma and then shoot it into the sun. Ben Peterson actually suggested just shooting the sun with gamma rays, because the reason the sun's expanding is because it's burning its own hydrogen. So if we want to stop the sun from engulfing the solar system, we're going to need to continually feed it that hydrogen so it stops expanding.
And you can use sonication to produce gamma rays and a number of kinds of rays and different vibratory waves of particles in whatever gas particles you can send, theoretically in this. The other thing, by the way, for everybody who's freaked out because everyone's talking about space, I think it's funny that there are people that you can explain something to, like Ian was just saying, like you can explain something one way to somebody and explain it another way to another person. Like there are some people that can't deal with the idea of demons and interdimensional reality and frequencies. But now they're able to handle the conversation because we're talking about those things spread out over a flat, long thing into a far vacuum of space. That makes the whole thing make sense to people. You just took everything that was in one pile of holograms and laid it out flat like it was just a bunch of things in your room on the floor. And then all of a sudden space as a distance makes perfect sense to people. But then it doesn't work for them, so they need quantum entanglement anyway. But never mind that, because at least we figured out a way of visualizing it for people that need to visualize it. And with space as this concept of distance, it also means that you can talk to somebody who says, okay, well, I don't believe that there's different dimensions where there's somebody who looks like me and it's just a different pivot. But then you think, well, if this is such a logical symmetry in a space system, then in another one, if it works, if there's a sun that's like our sun, and chances are for it to work, it has to be like our sun. It has to have a planet kind of like our planet. And then that planet has to have a moon, which is phenomenally unusual, right? And so we have this crazy odds to make this particular thing where all of a sudden the sun and the moon, which is the sun supposed to be this giant thing, and the moon's supposed to be this tiny. Apparently, this God has made, and science and chaos have made these two things identically looking things in the sky somehow. Just magical. It's amazing. And yet, I was going to finish that last bit. Then, because of that, people could probably exist in other parts of space that are in another sun's Earth looking thing, and the same logical progressions of physics patterns like mouse traps and ping pong balls would happen to produce things that look like us. I mean, it could be that almost identical things exist to us with identical sounds because it's just a logical progression. And then by a few thousand years into it, they look like Ian and Andreas and they're having conversations. That this is just a logical progression of atoms breaking apart.
Yeah, I think that it's possible that our solar system is an archetype of a functional solar system for this life form that we are. And that's that Maybe there was a Z pinch. Maybe there was a binary star collision. We were talking about this in the past on a great Tartary group chat at one point, that two stars collided, and then there was a Z pinch and an electric shock basically that arced across the solar system, spewed out all this matter into 26 rocky planetoid bodies that were spinning, and then further out into these giant gas globules like Jupiter and Saturn. And there's still like a heat signature in Saturn. Like it looks like a dying star, like a leftover of a star. Jupiter is deflecting asteroids from in the inner orbit. So it's like it's part of the function of a survival system. And the moon, so a couple of pieces of rocky matter slammed into each other. Out of one side came this sphere of metal, just that eventually cooled down and condensed into the moon. And what we had left over was the Earth. The moon, because it's now this magnetic formation of a sphere, like cools into the exact right spherical shape that it blocks out the sun completely when it's between the Earth and the sun. I would be very surprised if it was a coincidence, because it's so mathematically functional in so many ways.
Right. Yeah. It seems like Isaac Newton kind of symmetry there. I mean, I wonder why and how, but it's amazing. Definitely. Like they can't be impossible. And then the fact that there's nothing else that we found officially that's like that. What do you think is up with that? Have we found it secretly, or is it that distant, or what's the story with that?
It's possible that if you look at subatomic or atomic particles, that there's things that are there that we can't see, that we haven't been able to measure yet, floating around the proton, more than just an electron. And if you break down the electron itself or the nucleus itself, you might start to see functions that mirror solar systems even more. I've never seen anything like our solar system on a microcosmic or macrocosmic scale other than our solar system. I don't know, but our measurement tools are still so rudimentary. We're still using light to measure things.
I just found this interesting post from Disintegral as a comment on our YouTube. It says, not to mention the Earth time traveling 72 years into the future when it's shifted by 1 degree. That sounds mad wicked interesting. Please let us know what you're talking about. I'd like to hear more about that.
That's very interesting.
I mean, like, the thing is, all these thoughts that used to sound kind of like science fiction, now there are realms we understand how time is based on, at least like you just said, it's not a distance, it's a degradation of particles, perhaps from radiation, like sound, sonication, or light, or any kind of thing. That is a psychological metric of Gestalt, like where you're thinking about this is this object, but this is also that object, but it's not the same because it's been through things, and those things have mutated it and stuff. So time is this kind of, if time could be accelerated based on degradation, and if it's based on, especially if it really is based on this clockwork like solar system, then imagining another radiation system, another sun, another meteor coming through and changing something could change the rate of degradation, which we refer to as time.
Right. If you speed up the spin of the Earth around the sun, it's going to look like everything's happening faster, which you would describe as time speeding up. So I could see that changing the angle that the Earth is rotating around the sun might change up, not necessarily just the speed of the Earth relative to the sun, but the speed of the entire solar system orbiting the galaxy, or the speed of the entire galaxy orbiting the universal core, or all of the above at once, which then would be difficult to measure because it's all relative to itself. Like if everything starts to move faster, it's going to look like nothing changed.
Wow, so that's another interesting thought about expansion. So like if things are also, because the universe is supposedly expanding, then if you were able to see yourself in the past, would you be a giant compared to even if it's like a year later, because everything is relative, right? Like, so everything's expanding. You're expanding, but if you would go back and see yourself, you would have been smaller still,
Yeah, you'd be further out from the center, which you could describe as bigger, as having expanded. If you were gonna move further away and look at yourself faster than the matter moved, which is a kind of a weird concept, but light travel, if you could move faster than light, I think ultimately, or if you could vibrate a distant place and use that place as an observation point to see what you were relative to what you're going to be when the light reaches it.
I wonder about the consequences of that now. And like, imagine if the universe had a certain amount of gold and it was so dense, and as time expanded, it didn't expand as quickly. So then the things that were expanding more around it, the clouds were making the Earth larger, but the amount of gold is still similar to what it was when the Earth was smaller. So then it becomes more rare in value, perhaps.
Oh, so if you expand the system, the individual pieces become more rare
Certain
relative to the
certain
volume of the system.
I'm imagining it's plausible that some things, if their density doesn't expand as quickly as the rest of them, and so maybe precious metals might be one of them.
I like the platinum metals a lot. Rare earth metals in general.
Oh, dude, do you have any platinum nearby, or is it all in storage?
No, I do have some.
Dude.
Give me about 10 seconds and I'll grab one.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Crossland grabbing some platinum.
Oh, 10 seconds, I said. But I don't know if
No, that's cool. While you do that, it's totally, we can look at some of these questions. Andres knows about the wafer realities, in my opinion. Well, decent. It's an honest opinion. Platinum. Ugh. Paragon. Look at Paragon's picture. Everybody just revere it. It's great. So yeah, I'm gonna look back up. Stellium, definitely we need to do something about Mobius strips. You know, they go in circles. But yeah, I think the thing is that there's no contradiction. But yeah, we need to go further with that. I'd love to go further with it. I think it's time that we just make it more about the Mobius Earth. Mars is rust. So is magnetic tape. Okay, here's an article about 72 years in the future. Thank you, Disintegral. I'm gonna pull this up somehow. Oh, I can't grab the picture off the screen. That makes sense. I have to type it out. Edition.cnn.com. Well, if it's CNN. All right. 2011. How's everyone's Halloween going, by the way, while I type out a giant ACP-12-3//12-earthquake.tsunami.earth-index.html. Okay. All right. So here's the article from, oh, did you get that?
Yeah.
Let me close this thing down for a second. Cool. Zoom you into solo mode.
Great. This is a piece of platinum. And it's very small. Oh, I dropped it into the bag. Here we go. Let me hold this up to the camera. It's very small. This is a gram of platinum.
Wow. In the light, it shines real nice. You can totally see it.
You can get it at apmex.com. AppMex is where I bought it from. And sometimes I stick it on my forehead when I work out. And you can feel it absorbing into your bloodstream. That may be psychosomatic, but it's fun.
We should do a jazzercise music video where we wear platinum beads.
In addition to platinum, I have a couple other metals. One of them is palladium, which is incredibly, well, there's a phenomenal metal. First, I want to show you the gold. My theory about gold is that it is platinum fused with hydrogen. It's only one proton heavier than, this is gold. This is a gram of gold. It's only one proton heavier than platinum. So I imagine what's happening is in the sun, platinum is fusing with hydrogen and becoming gold. Gold is incredible. Get your hands on it if you can. It used to be in the food, like in the earth, so the plants would have a little tiny little bit trace amount of gold, so we'd get it when we'd eat the plants. But now because it's been mined out, we're missing it. But it's a trace mineral like iron that you need in your body, in your bloodstream.
Yeah, apparently the food from the Amazon we were still doing all right, and that's probably why, because there's gold in the rivers, and so the food, like the carrots. I think there's two reasons, right? Like there's the minerals, and then also the water spinning around or something, you're getting it all swirly because you get those watermelon-sized carrots. And I'm pretty sure it has to do with the mineral content. Which was that?
This is palladium.
Nice.
Palladium is another platinum metal, and it's very unique in that it's the only element which has its outer layer of electrons saturated. Its outer valence shell of electrons is saturated with electrons. Everyone else goes up to 1 before the saturation level, and then when it saturates, it creates another one past it. You may want to fact check me on that, but I believe it's got 18. So it looks like they use it in cold fusion. I think it's because it's so electro, I don't know what you call it, but electro.
Like, is that a Yamaha FG150 on the wall back there?
No, it's a Martin Dreadnought.
Nice.
It's my first guitar. My first acoustic guitar.
So it is.
All right, I'll show you my last piece of metal. This is copper. This is a pound of copper. Highly recommend.
Sorry, it's a Willy Wonka chocolate bar. Can you show it again a little closer?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Copper's great. It's cheap too. I think if you're going to invest in metal right now, you'll want to go with silver or copper. Copper's functional because you can melt it down into bullet shells. I don't know if that's really going to be necessary, but you can. Also, this is titanium. I don't know why it's in plastic. All right, I showed you all my metals.
Heavy metal.
I think this is fake silver. I thought it was silver, but I think it's just silver plated.
Huh.
I know you just asked me to show you platinum. I showed you all the above.
No, that's the thing. And then, people care about the guitar. You could even hold the guitar for a second. I'm going to open up that screen share and look at what Disintegral sent us really quickly of that while you do that.
Cool.
Look at that. Perfect.
Quake moved.
So Lee had showed us this article about Quake moving Japan coast 8 feet, shifted the Earth's axis. I'm just going to read it along with it. This is way better. The powerful earthquake that unleashed a devastating tsunami Friday appeared to have moved the main island of Japan by 8 feet. That's 2.4 meters. And it shifted the Earth on its axes. Well, that's a pretty interesting thing. So if the Earth shifted on its axes, the first thing that comes to mind, I think Lee said it was, it has to be accounted for at least in astrology, and take that as far as you will. But I mean, that does mean that there's a change. I mean, a change in the axes could account for so much, like global seasonal effects. We've got such crazy weather, I mean, imagine just like, that's a huge amount. Like, I don't know. I wonder about that.
I was thinking that while the galaxy is rotating, it's got like the spiral arms are going around like this, but that they're also going like this. So it's like it's spinning, the galaxy's spinning, but it's got this like up and down motion. And when like if you measure an electron or an electron in a valence shell, it just appears in any one area around the electron. You never know exactly where it's going to appear when you do the measurement because it's like bouncing all over the electron all around it. Kind of looks like it's apparating in different areas of the valence shell. And I wonder if our sun in our solar system is doing that in the galaxy, but it's happening. So like we're just appearing, we're beeping, we're like blipping and appearing in different areas of our valence shell. But because to us, it's happening so slow that we can just measure where it is and it doesn't look like it's moving. Or if it does, it looks like it's moving super slow. It's kind of an out there theory.
That makes the most sense. That's what I think has to be going on. I mean, otherwise, dark matter, then it gets into dark matter. So what do you think about dark matter? Is the science still out? Does it exist? Is there an excuse that it could be something else?
Dark matter and dark energy. I read that it exists, and then I read that it doesn't exist. But it's got to. I mean, I would be surprised if everything that exists we've already measured. That I heard that like 80% of everything out there we haven't even been able to measure yet. So they call it dark. The weight.
It's like 99%.
Yeah, at least. NASA. I keep thinking of Nassim Harame's Schwarzschild proton theory, where the entire universe is equal density. Every aspect of the vacuum is as dense as every proton, which is as dense as every black hole. But what it is, I don't know. Calling it dark is like just saying it's something that we don't know what it is yet. Oh, someone just asked about the metal. I saw that comment pop up. That was cool.
Yeah, Auntie Queenie says, thank you for sharing the metals. What is the deal with white gold? The jewelry industry has pushed white gold for some years, maybe about a decade now.
Do you know anything about white gold?
Not enough. Never been a gold. Let's see, white gold. Let me look it up. Actually, someone in the comments, if you guys have answers, go ahead and let us know about white gold. It's a mixture of pure metal. Oh, yeah, okay. So it's not pure gold, I guess is the deal. Is that they're mixing pure yellow gold and other metals to make an alloy that's harder so that the gold doesn't, because gold is rather soft. So they can use white gold with rhodium plating, nickel, etc. I mean, it seems like you would, yeah, it seems like you would do that if you had to, but you'd have to pick the metal you wanted.
I think nickel is incredible. I don't know much about its the properties, its uses, but it's really, really cool looking.
I have a bit of a glitch going on. Is that you or me?
Right now, I just see my video, and it looks good.
Hold on a second. Yeah, my screen. I can't. Do I look blurry to you or
No, you look good.
Okay, there's something kind of happening on your side there that's a little blurry.
So, dude, let me know what you think about this theory. You see this behind me? This is a crystal ball. It's a quartz crystal. And what I've read about crystals is that if a crystal vibrates in one side of the room, across the room, the same crystal will start to vibrate.
Hold on, so Ian, your video's a little. Can you reload yourself into the thing and see if that speeds you up?
Sure.
Thanks. In the meantime, what's up? Happy Halloween, or Moro. Ian's glitch is coming right back. Don't you all worry. He's just gonna reload the page. He's at Tim Pool's right now, and the internet there is it's happy, you know. Plus, he's talking about serious stuff, and they're never sure what we're gonna talk about, and it's always kind of weird. Dark matter is 99.99. Oh, there we go. Is that him? No. Uh-oh. No device connected. Oh. Ian, he's gonna have to connect it. Oh, crazy. Did they get? They probably. Uh-oh. Well, there we go. Yeah. Okay. That scared me so much. I was so worried for a second there.
Hello.
That's so much better. Okay. All right. So you're saying crystals, resonance, interacting with each other. Go for it. Uh-oh. Is somebody downloading stuff at your... I think your internet's falling apart. It's a serious glitch. You might need to reload again. I don't know what's happening. People don't think it be like that. It is, but it do. People don't think it be like it is, but it do. Can you hear me? Is it there? Am I glitching, or is it just Ian? It's just Ian, right? Let me know if I think my internet's okay. Just let me know. Yeah, they try. They keep trying. Okay, so in the meantime, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna open up the Discord. Is that open? And then we'll see if I can interact with you guys in the Discord while that's happening. So if anyone's on the Discord, we're gonna have radio chat. So enjoy that. Okay, here we go. Hey guys, how's it going? Okay, yeah. What's up? Okay. You guys are on the you guys are on the radio, on the live chat right now. I figured I would come visit you guys.
I'm on.
Oh, do you want to maybe go a little deeper, just integral about what you were saying about the 72-year axes?
Yeah, apparently it's all about yeah, so like 1 degree of the wheel on an astrology is 72 years, so technically that's kind of what happened. We jumped forward. So yeah, it's just something I picked up on as I've been like learning astrology and following a few people. It's been mentioned a few times, and might account for why everything's going so crazy. If regardless of whether or not it's flat or round, if you notice the change in the sky, and it can be accounted for in astronomy and astrology, then it doesn't. You've got it.
So that's interesting in and of itself. Thinking about astrology's connection to our measurements of time or understanding of time, because that's, people forever would think about how many harvests someone has. Imagine you have a son and you go to a king's tax collector and he's thinking, okay, you've got probably about 40 to 60 harvests at least. That's part of our measurement of time. So if all of a sudden that's altered, and also what if that alters the length of time it takes to make orbitals? I don't know exactly how much of a change this is.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue, mate.
I like you can see my reaction. I get my big eyes. I'm like, Ben, what's up with you, Ben? Oh, whoa. He's trying to call. Whoa, that was weird. Hey, Ben, what's up? You're on the radio. Hello? Ben? Oh, did he This is so funny. Let's keep trying. But Ben called me and then Ben disappeared. Also, Jay.
You fell out. I don't know what's going on. It seems like maybe they're attacking you guys.
Oh yeah, we always have problems. I'm checking
tricks on us.
I'm checking to see. Hey, there's Nathan. Nathan, you can fill it in. Nathan, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm at work. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. We're just checking in on everybody, doing our live show. I'm seeing what's going on with Ian.
Very nice. Yeah, I saw that drop out. His idea about the resonant crystals can be shown as propagation of sound.
Continue.
Essentially, the tuning fork test is what they use to show propagation within fields. Anything close enough will, having the same properties, will resonate with itself or its other. And they use this with tuning forks. They hit a tuning fork, which is attached to a box with an open end, and they put it next to another tuning fork, and they resonate together. And it doesn't actually steal energy from one tuning fork. The other tuning fork simply vibrates with it. And the same can be said of piezoelectric crystals. You can do the same thing as long as their fields overlap, which by fields I mean the extent to which the propagation can be shared from one object to another. And this is pretty handy because the human bioelectric field goes out about 6 feet. And what do we have to socially distance? 6 feet. Just a weird little corollary.
Interesting. Nathan, he's popping back on. Let's all continue the conversation together. Ian, are you able to hear? Ian, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ian? Ian, are you okay? Are you okay, Ian? Ian, are you okay? Are you okay? Can you hear me, Ian? No? You can't hear me?
Resonance, induction. Yep.
Yes. I'm
Whoa.
on a different net. Yes.
That was so loud.
We are. I'm in the middle of the woods, and we have yet to set up our fiber optic connections. So we have two internet networks. One is a satellite network, which is very slow. The other one is a DSL network. Our DSL network seems to be malfunctioning. So I'm on satellite. It's going to be very slow. It's very choppy. It's like 3 megabytes up, 3 megabytes down. But I'm gonna hopefully it'll last.
Yeah,
I have a lower frame rate.
That's all right. I made us into smaller screens. People already know how we look. Now we can listen to them ask us questions. And here, by the way, in the Tartary radio chat, Nathan's at work, and he had some points that he was making about sonication. You might want to try to reiterate slightly, Nathan. Here, let me pull this. Can I see this bigger? Here, this is him at work right now. Tell us your story. They make you wear that? Whoa.
There we go. So actually, Stellium said the same thing with propagation and resonance and induction. The crystals will resonate because that vibration is the exact same thing as sound.
Okay, this is exactly what I was thinking about.
So sonication, in terms of using the crystals to, like 2 tuning forks, you're saying, so you get a frequency, another frequency, and they're bouncing off each other, kind of like what Tesla was doing to destroy buildings, using like pitch matching. Is that correct?
Yeah, or the stories of monks yelling at things until they float, and banging drums at things until they float.
My theory about that, so I was mentioning this quartz crystal behind me. I think our bones are made of a crystalline structure called hydroxyapatite.
Story, right?
And I think we have a lot of lag right now.
Oh yeah. Here, I'll mute the. Here, go Ian. Ian's turn for a second.
Oh well, yeah. I want to hear Nathan's response to this too. Sorry about the overlap there, Nathan. But I think that when we speak, the vibration that we're making with our body is vibrating our own bones, which are made of crystalline, that are then vibrating the bones of every other human on Earth. And just like when you sit here and talk or sing or hear a vibration, it's altering everyone.
That's funny because a big thing that Nathan had been doing and we were talking about was the Great Walls of Tartary to keep out the old Katao Empire, which is now owned and considered China, where the Great Wall is. There was a wall built. The Great Wall was built with bones and blood and all of these corpses, supposedly, which didn't make a lot of sense. We thought, if you start looking into that, bodies rot, and like that would make a bunch of holes in the wall if animals were to eat. Bugs were to eat away the decomposing body. So what they really were doing apparently was using skeletons, and you can find all these cathedrals and churches and buildings where they're using the calcium and the crystalline bones to make these crazy antiquitech and spiritual things, which were pretty trippy. All with the bones.
So if your walls are made of bone and you're singing in the hallways, it would vibrate your body even more.
Stuff about that yesterday.
Yeah.
I have some cool pictures about it. I'll share them with you.
Oh yeah, here, pull it up. If you want, you can do a screen share and I'll.
Yeah, let me find them. I'll share them.
Faux show. In the meantime, I'll also check out some. By the way, everyone, I think you should be in the Tartary radio chat. It's pretty rad in here. Historical pictures are worth checking out. This is the Mercury, Le Mercure de Mexican Adjela Cholula of Quetzalcoatl.
Some good egregore stuff in here, some good psychedelics, some good Quetzalcoatl offerings.
Right. Some interesting stuff been happening. Also in Esoteria, if you guys are cool enough to join Esoteria, we have actually levels of this stuff. So Esoteria chat's been full of some of the crazier, more deep information recently, and it's been, it always has, but this one's, it's been
just chasing more egregore stuff.
Yeah, Analog's been putting some great stuff in there. Super Wicker Man-y.
There was some right there you just passed that showed some of the bone cathedrals from Peru and Chile.
Oh yeah, is it further up?
Yeah, a little further up here. I'll repost. There's one right here, right by Paragon's, right below Paragon's post. Yeah, a little farther up, boom, right there. That's a good one.
This one or that one? Dude, this one?
That one you just opened. Yeah.
Oh, this one.
It's called the Cemetery of
Oh,
Sacrifice.
yeah. There we go. Great. Yeah.
You see the delayed, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Is everyone able to see the this picture in the front of the screen? It's got skulls.
7 seconds. It's not too bad.
7 seconds delay. Got it. Okay. Well, there's a bunch of skulls here, and they're sitting around the skulls, and people are cleaning and setting the skulls up artistically. Every one of these little dots is a skull, and these guys are putting skulls up on the, like they're drilling them to the side walls of this building. And it looks like there's skulls all the way up the sides of all of their towers.
Yeah, they have just towers that are covered, that are over 100 feet tall, that are made of just skeletons, all connected to the same piezoelectric system. That was part of the Starfort takeover you showed earlier. The Indians were sacrificing people inside the Starfort. That's a juicy one if you look at that. That's the rain god right there. Jupiter, or their representation of Jupiter. Really interesting. These books are pretty special.
Pretty epic. I feel like I know that guy. Isn't that my friend? I feel like I know that guy from Connecticut. Don't we know him? That's funny.
I don't know.
Well, all right. Well, so this is some of the stuff that we found in the Tartary. I'm also checking the comments and things. Ian, what's something that you've been wanting to talk about that you haven't been able to talk about on your, the IRL recently? You want to go further into
9/11, man, and the nanothermite that was found in the dust.
That's pretty decent. I mean, that's weirdly the heaviest topic. We almost never. I don't think we've ever gone into any of that stuff here. We can.
We don't touch it on IRL. It's a touchy topic because terrorism in general is a touchy topic. But when I worked at Ground Zero,
that means non-state actors. So theoretically, you'd have to prove that they didn't have a job working for the government,
right? And when I talk about it, it's not even about who did it. I don't really care about that. It's almost impossible to even figure that stuff out. So that's not where I'm looking. I'm just looking at when I worked there. The firemen would come in. I worked across the street at the American Express building where the ground floor was blown out. All the windows were blown out from the explosion. There was no electricity. They had to run an electric line up. I had a little space heater. It was October 2001, super cold. And the firemen would come in and be like, man, there's no bodies under the pile. It's so hot that there's a river of molten iron flowing. And for months after the buildings came down, there was just flowing molten iron. That doesn't happen when a building falls down. But if you use a military-grade incendiary to melt iron or steel, then yeah, you'll have for months, for a long period of time, you'll have molten metal. And that, in addition to the nanothermite they found there, the engineers that have talked about using nanothermite, which is a military-grade incendiary, to melt the beams, and then coupled with the physics of the momentum of the buildings falling and being measured to look like they're falling in free fall. It just looks like someone set up nanothermite on the beams and had them all cut at once or blown at once so that all the buildings fell down, and coincided it with planes hitting it, and then said that it was for all I know, the U.S. government George Bush was tricked into thinking that it was really something. Those guys on the plane that knocked for the first time in history, towers down from a plane hitting it. First and only time in the history of humanity that a skyscraper of that magnitude has been knocked down by a plane. And it bothers me that that's not more mainstream.
Yeah, what was the other thing that was interesting? The number of people who'd missed their flights, like Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane, and so many people at the same time. Not that that's proof of anything, because celebrities miss flights. I mean, that's fine.
The guy that owned the building, Larry Silverstein.
Yeah, what a weird anomaly that these
Larry Silverstein.
Planes.
I hear that he was tipped off. That Larry Silverstein, he owned the trade centers and he worked on the top floor and went in every day and worked on the top floor. But that day, his wife scheduled him a dentist appointment. And when he gave his talk, if you will look up Larry Silverstein, 9/11 dentist appointment on YouTube, you can watch him giving his press conference, and he's sweating and like freaking out about it. And like, oh yeah, that day, yeah, just happened to get a dentist appointment. Okay. I get it. I'm not blaming him for anything, but that's also circumstantially weird.
I had a friend whose dad was what they call cleared for the weird, which is like, I think it's called C14 or something, where you have like certain level of clearances in terms of intelligence. And it was like the Snowden dad of, the time. And September, I was like 10 or 11. I think it was about 11, 2001, about 2 days before, I think it was September 9th, actually. He went into his room and he'd come out for like 10 or 15 days. And it was like 2 days before it, and then 10 days, like a week or so after it. And they're like, oh my God, like, do America's being under attack? It's like, don't worry, they're taking care of it or something. And he just stayed in his room, and they're like, what does it make you feel? And aren't you? He's like, it makes me feel like not going to work for a week, And I was like, okay. So I've always had that in the back of my mind since it happened. Like, this guy who's so connected, so close to it.
I'm having my.
Are you okay? Ian, is there glitching or what's up? Technical difficulties? What's going on? You can't hear me? Oh, it's the satellite maybe? I don't know. Well, in the meantime, while Ian figures that out, I'm going to go back to you guys. So I'm jumping back and forth. This is a new idea, and I'm probably going to have to use Soundflower next time because recording directly out of the mic is weird. But Analog, did you find those pictures? I'm sorry, I was popped off for a second there. And also Ben, if you've got anything to share. Oh, and Eugenie's here. God, so many great people here with us right now.
Yeah. That's the show. I'd be interested because I work kind of a little bit in networks. So I'd be interested in what their upload rate is. I would think they have pretty much like the best business package you can get for New Jersey. So
yeah, satellite internet
kind
still.
Of funny. We had 400 down and like 75 to 100 up at Palace, and that was for like $80 a month. That's what you get living in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I gotta get it's funny where I'm at, the internet's pretty terrible, but it's close to places that have brand new fiber. And so the cabin, the internet at the lake cabin in the middle of nowhere is like fast. It's like gigabit. But here it's like DSL basically, which is crazy. I haven't had DSL like ever. I went from like 56K to like T3. So it's like
sometimes good to revisit old times, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's vintage. It feels aesthetically.
You can do a lot on that stuff. It's like how to cut corners and.
Oh yeah, I mean when Ian and I were
so used to this. Yeah.
When Ian and I were in Peru, the internet was so bad. I
remember that.
Yeah, but we figured out how to get by.
You had to record voice messages because we couldn't actually hold a real-time voice chat. Now I can call friends in like India, like Pakistan, Philippines, no problem. But calling Peru, same continent almost. Okay, Panama, but yeah, it's not possible.
Did you guys see the MK Ultra glitch comment and too much truth from Ian? And I think that really sums it up. Is as soon as he starts talking about some of that stuff, that's like when it disappears. It's not.
I don't know why we have these type of technical difficulties, but it's a recurring theme over several years. So it's just one of those coincidences.
Ian, you able to hear me? Oh my God! So everyone there is like Ian. As soon as he should have known better. The helicopters are coming for him. As soon as he brought it up, they clipped his internet.
Taking him out. 2 weeks, we're gonna have fiber optic. In that case, no more lag. From what but right now, I'm sorry that the internet's so choppy.
It's all right, man. Just be careful. Someday they might drill underneath your house and give your fiber optic a vasectomy. You never know.
It's so important that we talk about 9/11 and examine it factually because
it's YouTube is lagging us.
Oh yeah, the YouTube's lagging. Guys, I'm gonna pop back in Discord in a second and see if I can get anything out of Ian.
Hello, testing. Oh,
testing. Can you hear? Can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, you sound like worse than my robot voice, but I can hear you kind of. Maybe we could turn down your settings a bit. Can you go to general and broadcast quality, in the settings. So cam mic down there, click on that, and then change the settings to a lower resolution. I'm gonna change the background. Yeah. Back in the studio, I'm gonna do this for a minute just for people. Back in the studio here, life is just so difficult. That's why we use expensive products like these products that really cost lots of money. And you might be saying to yourself, where do I get the money for these products? Well, make sure you sell out quickly and soon to Red Bull or Pizza Hut or buy these pills, new, different. All right, I'm gonna try it. Is your internet working again? Let's try that.
I think so. How's this sound? I turned down to 360p.
It's a little laggy, but I'm gonna give it a shot. Let's believe.
Okay. I mean, I'm also okay stopping. There might be someone in the house streaming video games right now, which is why the upload speed is diminished so greatly.
Oh, suspicious. Yeah.
Yeah. Normally we schedule around each other. Today I just went live without running it through past anyone.
Well, we can do this again. Do you want to let's get through a little bit of the September 11th like finale, and we'll just pretend that it was all the government trying to shut you down.
Sure, of course. I feel like it's important to talk about logically and factually because it was the impetus to take our country in war, and it's been one of the most devastating since Vietnam lost life and finance. I mean, if you want to finance whatever, but the loss of this destruction of property and humanity since, I mean, probably worse than Vietnam. A lot more lives were lost, but I mean, the amount of civilians that have been killed over there and undisclosed is wretched. So if there's any way to examine the reason we went to that war and can avoid something like that, if it was a mistake, that we could avoid something like that in the future. I think it's so important for our survival as a species.
So what you're saying is you think people should vote for Exertus and watch more recent Tartarians?
Yes, vote for Exertus and watch more recent Tartarians.
My God, Ian, it's so great to have you. I hope to God that we can do this again when there's a little bit less internet lag, because the beginning of that was so clutch. And I think that this is important. People will know next time when you're coming on that we're going to be talking about serious stuff, and we'll just pick up where we left off and go through.
Before, I just got to say, I am not a robot.
Yeah, I'm an android. I'm an Andreas droid. But Ian,
is there still lag?
There's a little bit of a lag. But it's okay. Ian's like a Cylon, so it's like in.
Oh yeah, I was just watching Battlestar Galactica. All right, sorry to cut off your extra.
Dude, I love Caprica. Is the Battlestar Galactica prequel series? I've been rewatching that. Really good, really good.
Nice.
Well, all right. The internet seems to want to give us some trouble, so let's do this again soon. But like,
thanks for having me on, man.
I was gonna say thanks again for coming, and let's do this like all the time, because like I think there's lots of places we can go with this, and we should just do it.
Gorgeous.
All right, love you all. Love you, Ian. Peace.
Bye, everyone.